This time we're going to discuss about unary operators. These are operators that requires only one operand. So that is why it's called unary operators, because it requires only one operand. The first is the sign operator. Say for example, if you have integer variable x which is set to 5, and if we also have another integer y, when we say in our program y gets using the sign operator, you say x, what would then be the value of y? Because x is positive 5, your y is equal to negative 5. So the sign operator simply change the sign of the operand. If it is positive, it becomes negative. If it is negative, it will become positive. So the sign operator, being a unary operator, as you can see here, requires only one operand, that is x, in this example. The second unary operator is decrement. Decrement is like two minus operators without space in between. So decrement would decrease the operand by 1. And the third one is increment. It is an operator consisting of two plus symbols or addition symbols without space in between, and this would increase the operand by 1. So say for example, if in this program we have integers x and y, and we set x to 5, you may set x this way to 5, or you can set the initial value of x upon declaration. Like in this case, we declare the integer variable x and we set that to 5. While in here, we declare it without setting the value of x, and we set the value of x on a separate statement right after we declare it. And say we would write here x minus minus. Okay, so this is a statement, a valid statement, which is equivalent to x gets x minus 1. Okay, remember, the decrement operator is to decrease the operand by 1. So it is equivalent to this one. Since the operator is right after the operand, we call it post-decrement. If it is before the operand, like in this case, we call it pre-decrement. Okay, so when the operator is before the operand, we call it pre-decrement. If it is after the operand, we call it post-decrement. For increment, when the increment operator is before the operand, then we call that also pre-increment. And when the increment operator is after the operand, we call it post-increment. Now later, we're going to discuss the difference between the pre and the post increment or decrement. This time, let's go back to our example that this expression here, or this statement here, which is x decrement, where the decrement is after the operand. So this is called a post decrement, that is equivalent in effect to saying x is set to the value of x minus 1. So if x is 5, that will make x equal to, say if we put a comment here, that will make x equal to 4. You decrease x, which is 5, by 1. And so the output here in the printf on the screen, you will have an output x is equal to 4, comma, because there's a comma here, y equals what? We did not set a value for y, okay? So just ignore this part here because we did not set a value for y. If y is set to, say, for example, 1, then the output here is 1. Now, the same is true if this is a pre-increment. Say, for example, if this is a pre-increment, so same is true if this is a pre-decrement. So if the decrement is before the variable x, the effect of that is just like this one, the same as that. You decrement x by 1. So the post-decrement, which is this, and the pre-decrement, which is that statement, this statement and that statement, they have the same effect, and that is to decrement x by 1. So it doesn't matter if it is a post-increment or pre-decrement when it is the only operator in the statement. Take note that in this statement, there is only one operator, and that is the decrement operator. So if it's alone in the statement or in the expression, if it's the only operator in the statement or expression, then the post and the pre-decrement have the same effect or does not have any difference at all. Okay, these two, the post and the pre-decrement, are both in effect the same as this, decrement x by 1. If it is increment, say if this is increment, say instead of using decrement, we use increment, we use post increment. This is the same effect as adding 1 to x. Okay, so the x plus plus is the same as x gets x plus 1. Okay, so this statement has the same effect as that statement. And also if it is pre-increment, so the post-increment and the pre-increment have the same effect. It is to add 1 to x, to increase x by 1. So again, the post-increment and the pre-increment have the same effect, which is this. That is if the operator increment is the only operator in the statement. Like in this case, it is the only operator. So the output here would be x is 5, increase it by 1. So this would become 6, right? So x here is 6. So again, if it is post-increment or pre-increment plus x, it has the same effect, and that is to increase x by 1. If we have now this example, y gets x minus minus. Now in this statement, we have now two operators, right? You have y gets x minus minus, or the decrement operator. The decrement operator, and another operator here is this. This is called the assignment operator. So there are now two operators that you can find in this statement. So since there are now two operators, the question now is which of these two operators are you going to perform first, or is performed by the computer? Is it the decrement first or the assignment operator? To answer that, when this is post, since this is post decrement, then it will be performed last, which means that the assignment operator is performed first. What is the value of the right side currently? It is, without having performed this decrement yet, the right side value is equal to 5 because that is the value of x. Okay, we have not performed decrement yet because it is to be performed last. So having not performed decrement yet, the value of the right side is 5, this one. And so when you perform this, you assign the value of the right side 5 to y. At this point, your y becomes 5. After you have performed assignment operator, you perform decrement and you decrement x, so your x becomes 4. From 5, it becomes 4. So these are now the values of x and y. And the output here, after we execute this line, we execute this next line, the printf, and the output would say x is equal to 4, comma, y equals 5. That's the output for this statement. Y gets x minus minus, or x post decrement. So if the statement is y gets x minus minus, or x post decrement, the output would be x is 4 and y is 5. Now what if we change this one to pre-decrement. So instead of x minus minus, this would be minus minus x. So it is now pre instead of post. Now in this case, we are using now the pre-decrement. When it is pre, it will be performed first. So this is now pre-decrement, minus minus x. When it is pre-decrement, you are going to perform it not last but first. So again, if it is post, whether it's decrement or increment, the operator is performed last. Okay, when it is pre, performed first. Okay, so since this is pre-decrement, then it will be performed first. So the decrement will be performed first before the assignment operator. So the assignment operator will be second to be performed while the decrement is first to be performed. So pre-decrement, you decrease x by 1. So from 5, it becomes now 4. So at this point, your x first is changed to 4. So you pre-decrement x, it becomes 4. After that, you execute the assignment operator. And so the right side value, take note, is already 4. Assign it to y, so your y becomes 4. So the output here would be x is 4 and y is 4. So when we use the pre-decrement in the statement y gets pre-decrement x, the output is x is 4 and y is 4. Now why is that y here is 5 and why is that y here is 4? Because in the first case here on the left side, we assign first the value of x which is not decreased yet. The current value is 5. So the current value of x, the initial value of x, which is 5, is assigned first to y. So y becomes 5. While in here, it is the new value of x, which is 4, that is assigned to y because we perform decrement first. So the right side becomes 4, and so it is 4 that is assigned to y. That's why this is 5 in here, and in here y is 4. Say for example, we have this program, x is 5 and y is set to 8, and then the first printf and then the second printf. What is the output in the first printf? This one, what is the value of this one? It will be displayed in here, right? What is the value of this? It will be displayed in here. For this value here, we display what? Is it 5 or 6? This is post-increment, and so being post-increment, it will be performed last. So there are 3 operations actually here. The first is the task of displaying the value of x and y, and second is to increment x, and third is to decrement y. So which of these 3 are we going to perform first when this line here is executed? Is it to display first x and y, which in that case is initially or currently x is 5 and y is 8? Or are we going to increment x first and then decrement y, and after that we display the new values of x and y? The answer is we're going to display first. Why? Because the increment here is post-increment and the decrement here is also post-decrement. So when it is post, it will be performed last. So these are not performed yet. This number 2 and number 3. So this is performed first, the display of x and y. So the output here for the first printf would be x is equal to 5, comma, y is equal to 8. And after the display, we increment x. X now becomes, this variable x now becomes 6. And y becomes, decrement it becomes 7. After that, we execute the last printf. The output there would be Say for example, we have here a new line so that the next output will be on the next line. We would say in the output, x is equal to 6 and y is equal to 7. This is the output. This one for the first printf, and this line here for the second printf. So we display on the first printf, the first output is we display the current values of x and 8 because the increment here and the decrement here are not performed yet because they are post increment and post decrement. They are performed last. So the task of displaying, because that is printf, is done first. So the current value 5 and 8 are displayed. After displaying, we increment x becomes 6, and we decrement y becomes 7. After that, when this is executed, the values of x and y are already the new values 6 and 7. Now, what if these are not post-increment and post-decrement? What if these are pre-increment and pre-decrement? So this would be pre-increments. So this is plus plus x, and this is minus minus y. So this is now pre-increment, and this one is pre-decrement. Going back to these tasks here, again, there are 3 tasks in this line. In the first printf, what is performed first? Is it the display, just like earlier, or is it the increment or decrement? Since that is pre-increment and pre-decrement, it will be performed first, right? The display now would be last. This will be first to be performed, the increment of x, and second to be performed is the decrement of y, and third to be performed is the display. So what will be displayed as output on the screen would be the new values of x and y. So pre-increment, x here becomes 6 and y here becomes 7. And after that, display. So the output here on the first printf would be 6 and 7. Because it is pre-increment and pre-decrement, the output displays the new values of x and y. Then after that, the second printf will just output the current value of x and y, which are the same, 6 and 7. The fourth unary operator we have here is Sizeof. Sizeof returns the size of its operand in bytes, and operand may be a cast or an expression. Say for example, we have here printf %d, and then we output the size of x. Now, why is that the data type of the value returned by Sizeof operator is integer? Because we use here d, okay? This is the conversion specification for type integer. Because it says here, it returns the size of its operand in bytes, meaning how many bytes are used to or allocated to store the value or the expression. This one. How many bytes are allocated for variable x? Variable x is integer, and remember that integer is allocated 2 bytes or 16 bits, right? Because 1 byte is equal to 8 bits. So 2 bytes is 16 bits. So how many bytes allocated for integer type x? It is 2, right? So the output here would be, the output of this printf would be 2. And in the output here of this printf, the last printf would be the value of x, which is 5. Now, the operand of the Sizeof can be a cast or an expression. So a cast is simply a data type. We write here Sizeof car. Okay, we have here a cast or data type character. How many bytes are allocated for character? Remember, it is 1 byte, right? So this would just be returning the value 1. Okay. So if we say y gets size of float, what is the value of y? Size of float, how many bytes are allocated for data type float? Float is 4 bytes, right? Character is 1 byte. Okay, recall. Integer is 2 bytes. Float is 4 bytes. And double type is 8 bytes. So for float, that's 4. So the value of this expression here is 4. And so your y is equal to 4. It's the number of bytes allocated for float. How about if we say printf %d size of m? What is m? M is a character value. And since that is type character, whatever is that value is, since it is type character, it will be allocated 1 byte in the memory. So this would be 1. So whatever is the value of that, as long as it is a character, say for example, this is W, okay, so it would still be 1. How about if this is double? The size of double, or the number of bytes allocated for data type double is, again, recall, it would be 8, right? Because double is 8 bytes.